Welcome to anyone who comes in. We'll give it a minute. Let everyone kind of join in. I have two cameras, so it's going to look like I'm looking back and forth. I have my computer over here and my phone right here. So we're working in one area today, but still with two cameras. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Belinda. Okay, looks like we got a crowd coming in. I'm going to get started. Those who pop in later, they can always go back and view it in the replay. So tonight we are just going to talk a little bit about different kinds of applique. 3 to be specific. It's really like 2, but just 3 different ways. And I'm just going to show you a brief demonstration on how to do them. And I want to do this live because in the future, doing other lives, I want to be able to use applique as part of the project, but not have to go into a really deep discussion about it, versus I can just kind of lead you towards this video if you have questions, so that we can do more intricate and complex projects on these lives. And so if you see me looking over this way, I'm looking at the computer. It's that way I can see, what's going on in the chat and if there's any questions. So typically I have my camera on my phone set up at my workstation, but tonight we're going to do it all here. I have a nice little pressing mat and an iron and my sewing machine. And since we're not doing the full project, we can do it all sitting right here. So we're going to get started. I forgot to mention, my name is Julia. For those who are new on here, I am an educational designer for ThermOWeb on the fabric side. And you can find a lot of the projects I do on their blog. I do these Facebook Lives, and I read my own website as well, so you can check that out. It's in the description box if you're so interested. But let's get started. So I have what you've seen in the images. These were just my examples. I have 3 examples to show. The first one is we're going to talk about is raw edge applique and how you can use it with ThermOWeb's products to help you do it. So there's different kinds of raw edge applique, and you can use a fusible adhesive, which is what we're using. That's one of the things ThermOWeb sells and has lots of different varieties you can use. And tonight we're using a fusible adhesive called Fusible Lite. And the way my camera is, it's going to be backwards, so sorry about that. Fusible Lite, HeatnBond. And this helps with your applique because it will tack it down. And with the purple one, it's only a temporary. It's you have to sew with the purple. You have to sew around it to keep it from peeling up over time. But what's great about it is it keeps your applique in place so that when you sew, it doesn't shift. Otherwise, you'd have to use pins, and it's not so fun. So the 2 of the projects I have use the HeatnBond Lite interface, or not interfacing, I'll get back to that word. If you can pop it up, I can't think of the word, oh my goodness. So I'm going to show you. The first one is with a straight stitch. And this type of applique, it's a raw edge applique, and it will eventually, over time, this will get a little more frayed. So if that's the look you're going for, and this is a great option. I've just bonded the HeatnBond Lite to the fabric, and then I've appliqued it with the stitching on this little coaster. Now this coaster's never been washed, so it's nice and crisp still. But over time, with this type of project, this will start to fray. So that's the first type. And the word I was looking for is fusible adhesive. I couldn't think of it. So this is the raw edge applique with a straight stitch. Another type of raw edge applique, which will not fray as easily, I've done the same thing, and I'll be doing that demonstration in just a moment, is I've used a blanket stitch. So the raw edge is in there, but with the blanket stitch, it will keep that, it will encase those edges more, and it's less likely to fray. this is my preferred method right here with the blanket stitch. You can also do a zigzag stitch because I learned this recently, not every machine has a blanket stitch. So if your machine doesn't have a blanket stitch, you can do a zigzag, or you can even make your zigzag really tight, and that's called a satin stitch. So you've probably seen that before. So we're going to do one example with the raw edge applique, and then we're going to do one example with this type of applique. This one is my least favorite, but it has a place for certain things, and it's really nice because there is no frame. So this is called a turn edge applique. And this one, we're going to use a ThermOWeb's soft woven fusible, which is really nice. You can use other products as well. I prefer this one. It's woven and it's just got more strength to it. I've done it with other products, with some of their other products, which work great, but depending on what you're doing, the other products, like for example, the medium weight non-woven fusible interfacing, it tears a little bit easier. So for this type of project, for a turn applique, it just didn't work as well. This is nice. It has a nice strength to it and it doesn't tear. So I really like the soft woven fusible. So that's what we're going to use tonight. So to get started, I'm going to be moving my camera to look down, and then I'll place my other camera on me. So we've got that one, and then hopefully this doesn't fall off on me here. So we're going to turn this down, and you can see the workspace. So we're going to start with the raw edge applique. So with the raw edge, and you can do raw edge without a fusible webbing in between. It's completely possible. The nice thing about this is it gives it some structure. If you try to do applique with nothing on it, your chances of your needle punching through your fabric and then kind of eating your fabric and creating creases goes up. This is nice because it just gives it that nice extra bit of thickness. And then speaking of thickness, which I didn't pull it out, if you're doing a lot of applique together, you can use the light sewable. I've done what's called a window method, and the window method makes it so it doesn't get so thick. Or ThermOWeb has HeatnBond Feather Light, which is a really thin, but it requires sewing, fusible. So, all right, so I'm gonna heat my iron up. Get this right there. So what I've done is I've already traced my image of my HeatnBond Lite, and I'm going to refusing it to the wrong side of my fabric. So I'm going to give that just another second to warm up. And can you see both cameras? I'm just curious. Okay, there we go. Sorry, there's a lag on my end, so I'm just making sure you can see both cameras. Okay. So I think it's hot enough. I'm going to press this to fuse it. And it really doesn't take that long. I'm going to let it cool down, and we're going to cut this out. My hands are really cold, so this feels really good. Okay. So once you have it fused, you cut out the shape and do that. It's spring and Easter's coming. I'm doing a little bunny shape. And I'm being very wasteful. Normally I don't waste this much, but I just for being to be seen on the Facebook Live. But nice thing is these are pretty big. Keep this. You can use it on all sorts of things. There's our little bunny. What I like to do when I'm doing applique, if I can, I'd like to already have my batting or my fleece. You can even use Fusible fleece. Tonight I'm using sewn fleece. We're going to baste it to our fabric. Again, it gives it the structure so that it's easier to applique around it without your machine eating your fabric. So real quick, I'm going to baste it. I'm going to baste, this is the StitchnSew Fleece, so there's no Fusible on here. These are some of my scraps, so this little project's a great way to use up scraps. I'm going to be basting it with my SpraynBond basting spray, but not on top of this mat. This is my new pressing mat, so I'm going to put down just a piece of paper. And since this is such a small project, I don't really need that much. I'm going to check the chat real quick. Cool. All right. So now that this is down, I'm going to peel the paper backing off of my bunny. And we're going to place it right in the center. I'll turn it towards the camera. I'm going to try to get as center as possible. Now tonight, since we're just demonstrating applique, I'm not going to actually finish this coaster on screen with you. I will finish it later. Just want to make that aware. The way I will finish it is just like I finished these, which is the put two together, sew it around, turn it right side out. All right, so we've got this peeled. We're going to fuse it. And again, it doesn't take too much to fuse it. And once that cools down, then we're going to take it to the machine. And since I'm going to do my favorite, I want to show the blanket stitch. You can watch me do that. We'll do my blanket stitch. So it's almost cooled down enough. And since I'm really not even talking to you guys, so I'm going to just take that off. All right. That way you can see the whole area and not get... So I'm going to do the blanket stitch on my machine. It's a specific number. Every machine's different. I really was surprised when I was talking with someone that they bought a machine and it didn't have it. It was very surprising to me. But like I said, you can use a zigzag, works just as great. So it's something to think about when you're buying a machine. What stitches do you plan on using and making sure that machine has them? Okay. So my machine tells me it calls for a different foot, so we're going to put that on. And I'm just going to get started. And with applique, it's always better to go slow. It's definitely something you don't rush through. It's also something that you get better with time. I want to point out, in case it happens to anybody, sometimes your stitches can skip. And I have learned, at least with my machine, and every machine is different, but in case you have this same problem, I have learned that doing applique I use the needle, a 116 needle. It works better for me. So if you're noticing issues, try changing the size of your needle. It could need to go to a higher number or lower number, but just to help you out with problem solving if that happens. So here we have one of our raw edge applique using the blanket stitch. And I'm not going to do another one with a straight stitch. It's just the same thing. Little bunny. The next, we're going to do the turn under applique. So let me just show that again. So this one, there are no raw edges. So we'll get started on that. So for this, I have a fun little jar shape. I have the soft woven Fusible. I don't know if I get close enough, if you can, without it being blurry, see. You can see how it's woven. So there's different types of Fusibles, and there's a woven and a non-woven. So a woven has a grain line like this, just like fabric. It's woven. And then non-woven is just that. There's no grain line. So you don't have to try to match them up. So we're going to match it with the grain line of the fabric, which I cut this already on that, so I already know how to put them together. So for this, that aside for a second, there's a few extra steps. So this is a Fusible. It's got a rough side, and that's that will be the sticky part with the iron. And you want to place it right sides together. So I'm using a batik, so there's really no right or wrong way. If I were using a fabric that wasn't, so like for example there's a right and a wrong side, I would need to put the sticky rough side on the facing the right side of the fabric, so your outside is the wrong side. So those are going to be placed together, and then you'll take your template for whatever you're doing and you'll trace it. You can trace it on the fabric, you can trace it on the Fusible, you can do either. Now this method, like I said, it's not my favorite, but it has a place. I did this on a set of placemats, which is a great place because placemats get used and washed. So I wanted them to keep their crisp look. And also, this method might be more challenging based on what you're trying to applique. So something with a lot of curves, and this might not be the best one, but if you're up for the challenge, that's fabulous. So I have it drawn. I'm going to pin just to kind of hold the fabric in place. And I'm going to stitch directly on this line all the way around with just a straight stitch. Cutter didn't like that, so. All right, so we have stitched all the way around. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna split these so that you have just the fusible. And we're going to be cutting into it. So I've done this before with other lives, and this is the scary part. You're going to just cut a little snip in the center to create a hole, because that's what we're going to need when we turn this around. But before we turn it around, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to trim this out. And I'm going to trim it about 1/8 of an inch to that stitch line so that it doesn't have very thick seams. And we're going to clip the corners like you would clip any corners. And this one, it has curves, just slightly, just some slight curves. So I am going to just do little snips. When you do your snips, just make sure you don't clip into the curve. And then we already went ahead and cut this. So I'm going to cut it just a little bit bigger. This is a pretty big shape, so I can be pretty liberal with my opening, which is nice. So you just cut an opening. We're going to turn it right side out. Now the only thing with this is when you're turning right side out, you got to really push out those seams. You can't use your iron to help you kind of guide those seams along, because the way we put the fusible on, the sticky part is now on the outside, which is going to help fuse it to our background. Just kind of have to work. That's why I said certain shapes are great for this, others not so much. Once you've got it to the point you think you like it, is when you can adhere it to your background. So again, I have a nice little background, and I'm using StitchnSew Fleece, and I'm going to use the basting spray again. ThermOWeb does have a fusible fleece, which is great. But we're using scraps. And you could totally pin base this as well. I absolutely love the basting spray. Okay, my iron keeps shutting off. There we go. All right. So just like with any other fusible webbing, we're going to put the rough side down. And I'm going to put this, I think I'm gonna do it on an angle. And the reason for that is I want to be able to go back in and I'm gonna hand embroider some flowers in here. So I'm gonna make sure it's up far enough from my edge because I know I'm gonna have about 1/4 of an inch around. And I'm going to press it right here. Okay. And then I'll wait for it to cool down again. And then I'm just going to do a straight stitch all the way around. And you can choose your thread color. I'm using white, and that the purpose for that is so that you can see it on the screen. But you can try to match your colors. So once this cools down, I'm going to stitch it. Turn that off so the lighting is better, so you can see. And that's stitched on. So this type of applique is great for anything that's going to get washed a lot, or if you just really want that nice crisp look without any frame. These are just three ways to applique. There are other ways, or there are other ways that you can do this same type of applique. There's a whole world wide web full of different methods. The one method I didn't mention tonight because we have an educational designer who really specializes in it is, oh, what is it called? Lisa Rubel, she is one of our educational designers, and she does a type of applique. And maybe Dawn, you can enlighten and put the wording in this chat box. It's been a long day here. I can't think of it. Reverse, thank you. Reverse applique. So if you want to learn that, there's a really cool technique. And Lisa does a fabulous job and has amazing patterns. We have other videos that show that technique, so you can check that out as well. But I'm going to bring the camera back up. That is essentially our live tonight. I'll keep the chat open and the live on for a little bit longer if there's any questions. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of give a demonstration on applique methods. That way further down the line, we can do some other Facebook Lives that include applique without me having to kind of go into an explanation of how and what I'm doing. So I can just refer others to this video so that they can see that I'm doing a raw edge applique or a turn under. So if there's any questions, just put it in the chat and I'll answer. Otherwise, thank you for joining me tonight. Glad you came on. And if you have suggestions for next month, I don't have anything planned per se yet, but if you have a product or a type of project you're interested in, just want a little more info about, just let me know. I'd love to show you what you are looking for. So I'll just keep the chat open. Oh, and John said, yes, we need to pick a winner for our gift cards. So last minute, drop a comment so Dawn can take a look at all the names, and she will be drawing a winner of a $25 virtual online gift card for you to use with ThermOWeb. So we'll keep that open and going until she gets that done. Okay. All right, Wendy Loveland, you won. Congratulations. So if you just want to drop Dawn, I think you can message her your email and she will get you your prize. All right, again, I'll keep the chat open for another minute or so. And just want everyone to have a good night and a good weekend. And if you came in on the tail end of anything and you missed part of the live, don't worry. I will be placing a recording of this on their YouTube channel, so that should be up by tomorrow. Yes, we have more live sewing in April. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night. Thanks for joining.